Chapter 11. No, we've barely said a word to each other in 3 days, Emily said into the phone in a low voice. No, it isn't, silly Josh. She's crazy. She really is, and she's evil. She could do anything. I think I hear her coming up the stairs, Emily whispered, huddled over the phone on her desk. Are you coming over later? Good. Bye. She hung up just as Jessie walked into the room. Her arms loaded down with books and papers, Jessie didn't glance at Emily, but walked straight to the back of the room and dropped everything onto the white counter that served as her desk. She sat down, humming very quietly to herself, and began sorting through the papers. Emily didn't turn around. As she had been doing ever since Saturday morning, she ignored Jessie entirely. She opened her government textbook and sifted through it until she found the chapter she had to read. She read a few minutes, then stopped. It was impossible to concentrate. The silence in the room was overwhelming. How long can it go on like this, she wondered, sneaking a peek at Jessie, who was writing furiously in a notebook. Sooner or later, Emily figured, the silent tension would lead to some kind of explosion, and of course, Emily thought bitterly, everyone would side with Jessie, as usual. Girls, come down for dinner, Emily's mother shouted, her voice making Emily nearly jump out of the desk chair. Chill out, girl, she warned herself, or else Jessie's going to win this battle of nerves without even trying. Jessie brushed past Emily, her nose in the air, as they left the bedroom. The aroma of roast lamb, Emily's favorite, drifted up the stairs, but Emily didn't care. She wasn't very hungry. As Emily took her seat next to Nancy, she saw that Rich's cheek was cut and he had a black eye. What happened to you? She blurted out. Rich looked away, embarrassed. Nothing. He got into a fight after school, Mr. Wallner said through clenched teeth. It was nothing, Rich repeated. A black eye and 3 stitches, Mr. Wallner grumbled. Really, Hugh, let's talk about it later, Mrs. Wallner said, a forced smile on her face. We should talk about more pleasant things at the dinner table. What did you do today? She asked, turning to Nancy. Oh, the usual. Fascinating, Mr. Wallner grumbled, chewing enthusiastically. They ate in silence for a while. I made all your favorites tonight, Mrs. Wallner said, smiling across the table at Emily. And it's all delicious, Emily said, even though she could barely taste any of it. Down the table from her, Rich and Jessie were having a private, almost whispered conversation. Hey, Jessie, Mr. Wallner interrupted them. Did I hear you talking on the phone late last night? No, wasn't me, Jessie said, looking surprised by the question. Emily knew she was lying. Jessie made whispered, secretive late-night phone calls just about every night. She always waited until she thought Emily was asleep, then pulled the desk phone down to the floor and made her calls in the corner. She had also sneaked out the window in the middle of the night again 2 nights before, reappearing just before breakfast time. I had indigestion, so I had to get up, Mr. Wallner told Jessie. I could have sworn I heard you on the phone. No, must have been mice or something, Jessie lied. Mrs. Wallner served baked apples for dessert. Emily ate less than half of hers, then asked to be excused. I've got tons of homework, she explained. Tell me about it, Nancy grumbled. Josh is coming over later. Call me down if I don't hear the bell, Emily said, and went upstairs to try to concentrate on the chapter in her government textbook. A short while later, she thought she heard the front door slam. Was it Josh? No one called her down, so she continued to read. She heard voices. It did sound like Josh. She closed the book and walked quietly to the stairs. She could see him in the hallway below. He was standing very close to Jessie, leaning with one hand against the closet door. They were talking animatedly, laughing together. How cozy, Emily thought, feeling the anger grow inside her. What does Jessie think she's doing? What does Josh think he's doing? She bounded down the stairs, deliberately making a lot of noise so they'd know she was coming. She stepped into the hallway, her eyes on Josh. Oh, hi, Emily, he said, sounding a little bit as if he hadn't expected her to be there. The anger must have been evident on her face, for he suddenly blushed and held up his book bag. I've brought my books, he said. Where do you want to study? Let's get out of here, Emily said, not looking at Jessie, but stepping in front of her to open the coat closet. It's too crowded in this house to study. Jessie turned angrily and started up the stairs. See you, Josh, she called back. Yeah, later, Josh said, standing back to give Emily room in a narrow hallway to pull on her down coat. Wow, he said, tugging on a strand of his black curly hair, as Emily pushed past him and opened the front door. What's that supposed to mean? She asked curtly, still wondering why he and Jessie were suddenly so chummy. Just wow, he said, pulling the door closed after them. You don't have to jump down my throat, you know. Just because you're mad at your stepsister, you don't have to take it out on me. I'm not mad at my stepsister, Emily corrected him. I'm terrified of my stepsister. How many times do I have to tell you? I think she's totally deranged. The air outside was cold and heavy. There was no moon in the gray-pink night sky. It felt like snow. Emily's sneakers crunched over the hard ground. She doesn't seem so bad, Josh said, struggling to catch up to her. I can't believe she'd really do all those terrible things. Stop defending Jessie, Emily said sharply, spinning around to face him. Why do you keep defending her? I'm not, he said, surprised by her anger. She looked up at the house. There was a shadow in the upstairs window, her bedroom window. It was Jessie, she realized. Jessie was watching them. Why is she spying on us? Emily asked aloud without realizing it. Jessie's diary flashed into her mind. She thought about it often. Sometimes Jessie's written words came back to her without warning. They think I killed Jolie, and I don't care what they think. She reached out and grabbed Josh's arm. Leaning against him, she struggled to catch her breath. What's wrong? Josh asked. She couldn't answer. How could she explain to him that, watching Jessie stare at them from the bedroom window, a dark shadow against a pale yellow lamplight, she was suddenly overcome with fear. Fear for her life. Chapter 12. What is this stuff? Emily held up her fork and examined it, making a disgusted face. I don't know, Kathy, sitting across the table from her, shrugged. It's too yellow to be macaroni and cheese. I've never seen this color before, Emily said, dropping her fork onto the bright yellow puddle on her plate. Kathy shoved her lunch tray away. I've had enough. She pushed her chair back, stood up, and stretched. The lunchroom was emptying out quickly. Everyone was probably in a hurry to get away from the yellow substance in case it was radioactive. Later, Kathy said, I see Lisa Bloom over there. I've got to talk to her about our math test. She gave Emily a little wave and, balancing her tray in one hand, hurried off across the large, fluorescent-lit room. Emily sighed and picked up her fork. She poked at her food for a few seconds, thinking about Josh, and then became aware that someone was standing beside her. Oh, hi. She looked up to see Jessie's friend Krista. Emily blinked a few times. Krista was wearing the brightest, most garish day-glow orange blouse Emily had ever seen. With her brown corduroy slacks and that bright orange top, she looks like a popsicle, Emily thought. You spilled something, Krista said, pointing. What? You spilled something on your shirt? Emily looked down. Oh, I don't believe it, she exclaimed angrily. She had spilled a blob of the yellow macaroni-type substance on the front of her new pink shirt. She grabbed a napkin off her tray and tried dabbing at the spot, but that just buried it deeper into the fabric. Better get some cold water, Krista said, frowning and shifting her weight. She sat down on the table edge and leaned toward Emily. I just wanted to, say something to you. Ask you something, I guess. Her normally bland expression turned serious. Uh-oh, Emily thought. What now? I'd better take care of this spot, Emily said, starting to get up. It'll only take a second, Krista said, not moving from her position on the table. I just wanted to know why you're being so terrible to Jessie. Huh? Krista's question caught Emily completely by surprise. Jessie is very upset, Krista said. Why are you being so awful to her? Emily started to sputter something, but no words came out. I know it's none of my business, but Jessie is my friend, Krista continued. Why don't you give her a break? She's not a bad kid once you get to know her. What do you know about her? Emily wanted to ask. Do you know that she probably murdered her last best friend? She stared up at Krista, still too shocked to move or respond. What horrible lies has Jessie been telling her? Emily wondered. Jessie was such a good liar. All she had to do was widen those big blue eyes and smile her angelic smile, and everyone believed anything she told them. What had she made up about Emily? Whatever the lies were, Krista was sure to spread them all over school. The two of them were the perfect team, Emily thought bitterly, a liar and a gossip. She pushed herself to her feet, turned, and, leaving her tray on the table, shook her head at Krista, as if to say she wouldn't dignify Krista's questions with an answer. Then she started jogging toward the wide double doors. Hey, Emily, Krista yelled after her. A few kids looked up to see what the fuss was about, but Emily hurried on without looking back. She stepped into the hall and turned toward the girls' room, which was at the end of the corridor across from the gym. Hey, Em, someone called, but Emily pretended she didn't hear. As she neared her destination, Nancy came around the corner, looking troubled, a stack of books and notebooks in her arms. Did the bell ring yet? She asked Emily, not stopping. Not yet, Emily said. Are you? You spilled something on your shirt? Nancy was past her now, picking up speed. I know, Emily called after her. I'm going to wash it off. Nancy doesn't look good, Emily thought. She's working too hard. She's worrying about her schoolwork too much, and about her social life. She's never had trouble finding boys before. I don't know why she's so concerned that she isn't going out with anyone now. She started to pull open the girls' room door and bumped into Jessie, who was on her way out. What's going on here, Emily thought. Can't I go anywhere without bumping into my whole family? I can't take this any more, Jessie said, her features set in a grim expression. She stopped in the doorway, holding it open with her shoulder, blocking Emily's way. What are you talking about? Emily asked coldly. I can't take this silent treatment. Jessie, do we have to talk about this now? Can't I go into the bathroom without having a major confrontation? She looked at her watch. Give me a break. The bell is going to ring in 2 minutes. Why are you doing this to me? Jessie asked. Her expression was hard like stone, but her eyes were red-rimmed. She looked as if she were about to cry. What an actress, Emily thought. Doesn't she know I can see right through her phony theatrics? I'm not doing anything to you, Emily said impatiently. Please, go away. Answer my question. Why are you doing it? Jessie said, not budging. Her voice trembled. Her whole body started to shake. Why are you trying to ruin my life? I'm not doing it. You are, Emily said, starting to lose her cool. How dare you try to turn things around? Don't you think I know all the horrible things you've done to me? Don't you think I know it's been you all along? Me? What are you talking about? Jessie cried loudly. You're crazy. I don't think you should be calling anyone crazy, Emily said heatedly. I'm not the one who sees a shrink twice a week. She regretted saying it immediately. It had just slipped out. But so what? Why should she be careful about what she said to Jessie? Jessie's eyes grew wide. Tears rolled down her pale cheeks. She opened her mouth to say something, changed her mind, and pushed past Emily, running full speed, her shoes clicking against the hard floor. Emily breathed a loud sigh of relief and hurried into the bathroom, grateful there were no other family members inside. Her eyes quickly surveyed the large black and white tiled room, the row of sinks to her left, the stalls to her right, a painted-over window against the far wall. No one here. Someone had left the water running in the first sink. Emily walked over and turned it off. As usual, the bathroom was a mess. The sink was clogged with paper towels, and there were crumpled paper towels all over the floor. She walked to the next sink, turned on the cold water, and dabbed at the spot on her shirt with a clean paper towel. She realized she was still breathing hard, still upset by her encounter with her stepsister. First Krista, then Jessie. What was the point of this campaign they were mounting? What had Jessie and Krista cooked up between them? What were they trying to prove anyway? Was Jessie trying to prove for some reason that Emily was some sort of horrible person? What was the point of that? Was it Jessie's way of denying the truth? That she was crazy? That she was the horrible one? Emily dabbed at the spot on her shirt. She couldn't tell if the stain had come out or not. Now she had a dark wet circle on her chest. Oh great, she thought wearily. That's really going to look great in English class next period. Feeling sorry for herself, wishing the school day were over so she could get outside, away from everyone, and breathe some fresh air, Emily entered the middle stall, locking the door behind her. Sitting down, she let her mind wander. She tried to think of something pleasant, something nice to take her mind off Jessie. She started to think about Josh, but then she pictured him leaning so close to Jessie, talking and laughing with her so cozily. Yuck, she said aloud. She heard someone come into the girls' room, heard shoes scraping against the tile floor, heard water running in the sink. The water stopped. Someone coughed. Then the shoes scuffed against the floor. The door opened and closed. The bathroom was empty again. A few seconds later, Emily smelled smoke. She got up quickly and hurried out of the stall. Her heart was pounding. The room was filling with white smoke. Where was it coming from? Emily held her breath. The wastebasket. Flames leapt from the wastebasket at the end of the stalls. So much smoke, she thought, for a wastebasket fire. Coughing, her eyes starting to tear, she ran over to see if she could smother the flames, but the flames were leaping high from the can, too high to get near enough to move the can. And then suddenly the paper on the floor caught fire, and now the flames were leaping up to the wooden moldings on the walls. I've got to get out of here, Emily thought, surprised by how frightened she felt. I've got to set off the alarm. The fire started to spread over the wooden doors of the stalls. Emily ran to the door leading to the hall and shoved. Hey, what's going on? The door seems to be stuck. Hey! She shoved again, jamming her shoulder hard against the door, but it didn't budge. It couldn't be stuck. Was someone standing on the other side holding it closed? Don't get paranoid, Emily, she thought. She coughed again. The smoke was burning her throat. Don't get paranoid. While Emily was in the stall, someone had come in and set the wastebasket on fire. Jessie? She tried the door again. It didn't move. Trying desperately to hold her breath, she lowered her head and ran past the flames to the little window in the back of the bathroom. Her eyes closed. She grabbed the window frame and tugged. No. Come on. Come on. Move. No. She tugged harder. The window wouldn't raise. Choking on the acrid smoke, she opened her eyes and saw the problem. The window frame had recently been painted. The window was painted shut. No. Help. Somebody. Help! The smoke had turned black. It seemed to billow up in all directions. She ran through the flames to the door at the front and heaved herself against it with all her might. The door wouldn't move. I'm going to die in here, she said aloud. Chapter 13. Her throat burned. Her eyes burned. She couldn't catch her breath. She ran to the nearest sink and turned on both faucets, splashing her face with water. It didn't help. It wouldn't help at all, she realized. But what if she filled the wastebasket with water and then used it to douse the flames? Yes, that might work. But where was the wastebasket? The smoke had formed a swirling black curtain. She couldn't even see the wastebasket. I can't breathe, she thought. I'm going to suffocate. Uttering a loud sob, she pounded on the door with her fists. Help me! Please, help me! No reply. The bell must have rung. Everyone must have gone upstairs to class. The downstairs hallway would be deserted by now. Help me! Please, help me! She tried to pound on the door, but she could feel herself weakening. Her arms felt so heavy, she could barely lift them. She choked, gasping for breath. If only I could catch up with my breathing. She couldn't see. The flames were so hot now, so high, so close. And then she heard someone struggling with the door. It's my imagination. Did she say that aloud, or did she just think it? Her mind was becoming a cloud, as dark and swirling as the smoke. She felt light as a flame. The door was pulled open. She wanted to run to it, but she was floating now, floating in the dark, dark air. Is anyone in there? Oh my God, Emily! Emily floated, so warm, so unbearably warm. If only I could breathe. Strong arms pulled her away. She floated through the dark curtain of smoke. She floated to the door. Emily, are you okay? Choking and sputtering, she staggered out into the cool, cool hall. She tried to take deep breaths, but her heart was pounding too hard. Emily, just sit down on the floor. Mrs. Hoffler, the teacher, looked very worried. I've got to sound the alarm. Emily leaned against a column, pressing her face against the cool concrete. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to stop choking. I'm going to breathe again. And I'll be okay. She saw Mrs. Hoffler open the glass door in the alarm and pull the lever. A bell went off somewhere above her head. I'm going to be okay. Mrs. Hoffler? Emily called. The teacher was tall and very skinny. The kids called her Mrs. Stork behind her back. Mrs. Hoffler? I'm going to be okay. The teacher hurried to Emily's side. Yes, you are, she said, looking very relieved. Flames leapt out from under the bathroom door. We've got to get out of here, Mrs. Hoffler said, shouting over the alarm. Think you can walk? Sure, Emily said. She took a step away from the column, then another, so dizzy, so lightheaded. She fell to her knees. Ouch. Let me help you, Mrs. Hoffler said. You must have breathed in a lot of smoke. She pulled Emily to her feet and, putting a strong arm around her waist, guided her to the door. This doorstop was stuck under the door, she said, holding up the wooden triangle, then tossing it away. It's usually under the hallway door right there. How on earth did it get stuck in the bathroom door? They reached the stairway leading to the first floor. Emily, how did the fire start? The teacher asked. I don't know, Emily said, still struggling to catch her breath. I'll bet Jessie knows, Emily thought angrily. Jessie was the only one who knew I was in the bathroom. Her legs felt so heavy going up the stairs, Mrs. Hoffler practically had to drag her. Emily stopped at the top step, leaning heavily against the tall teacher, one hand refusing to let go of the railing. I can't breathe, she cried suddenly, her voice so terror-filled she didn't recognize it. You'll feel better in the cold air, Mrs. Hoffler said, pushing open the heavy door and guiding Emily outside. The cold air was a shock. Emily breathed deeply. She was shaking all over, but it didn't matter. I'm alive, she thought. I'm breathing. The dark curtain seemed to lift from her eyes. The world became clear again. Colors returned. What were the sounds that grew louder and louder? It was the laughter and loud voices of Shadyside students. Leaning against Mrs. Hoffler, Emily realized for the first time that they weren't alone out here on the sidewalk, out here in the gray afternoon cold. Everyone was here. Everyone had been evacuated from the building. Everyone was standing out here, coatless, jumping up and down to keep warm. Emily heard sirens in the distance. The fire trucks must be on their way, she thought. and then Nancy was standing in front of her. "Oh, Nancy!" Emily cried emotionally, and, to her surprise, collapsed into Nancy's arms. "Em, what's wrong?" Nancy cried, catching Emily before she fell. "She was trapped in the bathroom where the fire started," Mrs. Hoffler explained quickly. "Oh, no?" Nancy's normally pale skin became flower white. "Are you okay?" "I think so," Emily said. "Is she in shock or anything?" Nancy asked Mrs. Hoffler. "Why don't you ask me?" Emily demanded, angry for some reason. "Why ask her?" "No, I guess not," Nancy said, a little color returning to her cheeks. "She sounds like herself." She grinned at Emily, a grin of sheer relief. Everyone cheered as the fire trucks pulled right up onto the grass of the school grounds, and serious-faced firemen leapt off and began pulling out a long gray hose. "It was scary," Emily told her sister, hugging herself to keep warm. "I'm going to take Emily home," Nancy told Mrs. Hoffler, "unless you think she has to go to the hospital or something." "No," Emily said. I'm fine, really." She heard the sound of breaking glass. The firemen must be using axes, she thought. Everything was clear now, clear and bright. She stared at the smiling, laughing faces of the kids huddled in groups all over the school grounds, delighted to have this excuse to be out of school. They don't know what it's like, she thought. They don't know how frightening fire is. "Take me home, please," she told Nancy. "I guess it's all right," Mrs. Hoffler said. Someone was calling her. "Go ahead." She turned and headed toward the insistent voice. "Thank you, Mrs. Hoffler," Emily shouted. She wasn't sure the teacher had heard her. It was an inadequate thank you for saving her life anyway, Emily realized. She decided to bring Mrs. Hoffler a present. Flowers, maybe, tomorrow. A few minutes later, Emily slid into the passenger seat of the small Corsica Nancy drove to school. Nancy started the engine. Emily closed the door and rested her head on the seatback, closing her eyes. "Are you sure you're okay?" Nancy asked. The car started on the second try. "Yeah, I guess." "You know, there's an ambulance here. It came after the fire trucks. Maybe someone should look at you, examine your lungs or something." "No, Nancy, please, I'm okay. Let's just go home. I'll lie down for a bit at home, okay?" Nancy backed out of the parking spot and carefully headed out of the student parking lot and onto Park Drive. Behind them, kids were cheering for some reason. Maybe the fire had spread over the entire building. Emily didn't turn around to see. "So where were you? In the bathroom?" Nancy asked, speaking quickly, her voice tight. "Yeah, downstairs, across from the gym." "And a fire started?" Nancy sounded very confused. "It didn't start. Somebody started it," Emily said, opening her eyes and sitting up. "Huh? Nancy, look out!" Nancy had driven through a stop sign and had nearly hit an oncoming car. The driver shouted something out his window and shook his fist. "Sorry?" Nancy called out meekly. She turned to Emily. "What did you say? Why didn't you get out of the bathroom? Why didn't you go out the window or something?" "The window was painted shut," Emily explained. "Besides, it was a basement window, underground. I would have had to climb up to—" "But why didn't you go out the door?" Nancy asked, putting both hands high on the steering wheel, trying to concentrate on her driving, even though she was more interested in getting Emily's story. "It was jammed. Somebody jammed it shut with a doorstop from the hallway door." "I don't believe it," Nancy exclaimed, shaking her head. "Believe it," Emily told her bitterly. They turned onto Fear Street. A few more blocks, and they'd be home. "Someone came into the bathroom. I didn't see who it was, and they started the fire," Emily explained. "You mean someone deliberately Someone deliberately started the fire, and then jammed the door shut. I know it," Emily said, surprised at how calmly she could say those words. "Sometimes kids start fires in wastebaskets for no reason, just messing around, and I guess the doorstop could have gotten stuck accidentally." "I don't think it was an accident," Emily said, her voice still calm, still cool. "I think it was Jessie, and I think she knew what she was doing." Nancy pulled the car up the drive and slammed on the brakes. Neither girl moved to get out of the car. Nancy turned in the driver's seat to face her sister. "That's a serious accusation?" "It was a serious fire," Emily said, crossing her arms over her chest, looking straight ahead through the windshield. "Jessie tried to kill me. I know it." "But how would she know you were in that bathroom?" "I ran into her coming out. She started yelling at me, accusing me of being terrible to her." "What?" "You heard me. She ran off doing this phony crying routine. She didn't fool me for a second. But, of course, I had no way of knowing she planned to come back and murder me." "This is dreadful," Nancy said, her voice cracking. She looked as if she might cry. She took Emily's hand in both of hers and squeezed it tightly. "And you really think that Jessie started the fire?" "I know she did. But you have no proof? Nancy said. Proof? Emily jerked her hand out of Nancy's. What proof do I need? My dead body? Emily realized she shouldn't be yelling at her sister. I'm sorry. I guess I'm more upset than I thought. I mean, I almost died in there, Nancy. Jessie almost got her wish. Nancy didn't say anything. She stared down at the steering wheel, seemingly lost in thought. You do believe me, don't you? Emily asked. About Jessie? Nancy thought for a long moment. Then she turned to her sister. Yeah, I do. From what you told me about Jessie's diary, and from the little bit that Mom let slip about her, I think Jessie is definitely dangerous. I believe you, Em. So what are we going to do? Emily asked. I'm going to help you get the proof you need so we can convince Mom and Hugh, Nancy said. You mean? From now on, I'm going to keep my eye on Jessie. I'm going to make it my business to know every move Jessie makes. I'm going to stick to her like glue. I want you to just lay off, to just cool it. Just avoid her as much as you can. Let me handle this. But Nancy, she hasn't given me any trouble, right? So she won't suspect that I'm going to be the one to expose her. When I have the proof we need, then you and I will sit down quietly with Mom and Hugh and tell them everything. Nancy leaned her head back against the car seat. She still felt trembly all over, but she also felt relieved that Nancy believed her, that Nancy was going to help her. Come on, let's go inside. Nancy pushed open the door and climbed out of the car. She came around to the other side and held the door open for Emily. How do you feel? She helped Emily up from the low car seat. Better, really, you don't have to help me up. I'm just a little jumpy, that's all. Nancy took her arm and led her up the flagstone walk to the front door. It's not going to be easy, Emily said, surprised at how dizzy she still felt. What isn't? Convincing Mom and Hugh that their golden girl has been trying to kill me? Just let me worry about that, Nancy said, unlocking the door and following Emily into the house. She was about to go make Emily some hot tea when the door burst open and Jessie came rushing in. Emily, I heard what happened, Jessie cried, her face filled with emotion. She lunged across the room and threw her arms around Emily, drawing her into a tight hug. Oh, Emily, are you okay? Are you okay? She pressed her face against Emily's and wouldn't let go. Her face was burning hot. Oh, let's be friends, okay? Jessie cried, her arms still around Emily. Let's start all over again, okay? Please? Emily was too shaken to speak. Despite the heat radiating off Jessie, Jessie's impassioned hug made Emily feel cold all over, colder than she had ever felt. Struggling to free herself from Jessie's emotional grip, Emily realized that she had never been so afraid in her life.